Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Illumineers Quest podcast, where we talk everything Lorcana. I'm Zach.
And I'm Jacob.
And thanks for coming on this journey with us. Okay, Jake is already laughing because we already had a little mishap today. This is our second time recording this episode because we came out last time.
This is actually round 3.
Yeah.
Third time.
We came out, last week we recorded this, and we came out sounding like Chernobog. And so we had to scrap it, unfortunately. But this is the infamous tier list episode, where we go through the top cards of the set, talk about why they're so good, how they fit into the meta, and so forth. So we're gonna
screw them up.
Yeah, and there's always one good screw up or something left off that
usually
is like
Amber.
A bigger screw up. I feel like we went really heavy in Amber this time, so I feel like if we screw up the Amber, then we're in like deep trouble with the Amber fans.
I mean, Amber, I think, is in good shape overall for this tier list.
I hope so.
Which is the first one that we're going to get into. But
yeah, we'll get into that for sure. But yeah, so quick little teaser there. That's the main topic of today, and we'll get into that in a minute. But as always, everyone, as we get into the episode, we appreciate all the support, and thanks everybody for listening and supporting the podcast. If you're listening on the audio version on any of the major podcasts network like Apple or Spotify, we also have a YouTube channel where you can view videos like these in the actual video. We are having like an actual tier list and dragging the cards through this time. And so it's good to watch this one on video a little bit more because you can actually see some of the stuff that we're talking through. And finally, anybody that's used our TCG Player affiliate link to purchase cards through, that really helps support the podcast and helps us continue to do this. And at some point, hopefully upgrade our equipment. And so we really appreciate all of the support that everybody's done to this TCG Player affiliate link as well, which you can find in the description below wherever you're listening to this episode. So with that said, first segment of the episode is card of the day, card of the week. So let's get into that. We couldn't remember what we did last time, but we picked one this time, and we were going with Maui's Fishhook. So Maui's Fishhook is the new Ruby item, 3-cost inkable, and has 2 different abilities that you can choose between each time you want to activate the Fishhook. You can either give a character an evasive until the start of your next turn. So that means on their turn, they'd have to have somebody with evasive to challenge it for that given turn, or you can give them +3 strength for a given turn. And so it's very diverse in that respect, because with locations in the game now and needing so much strength to take them out, the additional 3 strength really helps you challenge into those different locations. And it also then helps give you evasive for key characters that you want to quest with and then want to help protect a little bit. You could give them evasive for a turn and keep them on the board longer.
I mean, probably the most versatile item yet in the game, I would say.
There are a couple others that have dual actions, but they're definitely not as impactful as you get from these two.
I mean, both are super relevant to the ink they're in, both abilities, which is Ruby. And I mean, basically replaces a character card in Minnie Mouse, I would say, in most decks.
Yeah, Minnie Surfer's kind of dead because of this. She was so powerful last set because it was a very low cost, inkable, evasive character that quested for 2, and that 2 lore could just get really could creep up on you real quick if you didn't have any way to deal with it. Well, Fishhook deals with it with any other character. You know, your snakes, your foxes, anything, of those early characters can really deal with it. And so it makes, it's definitely changed some of those early game cards like that for sure.
I mean, and the Fishhook itself is one of the best location killers in the game. I mean, if it adds 3 to Maui, which it does for free.
Takes out. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention that. So if Maui's on the board, then you get to use those abilities for free. Otherwise, you have to pay 2 ink to activate the Fishhook.
So I mean, if you give 3 to Maui, that's 9. And so he can take out literally any location.
McDuck Manor, which, spoiler alert, is on the list to come up. So yeah, that's a good one for sure. Okay, and moving on to comments slash input from listeners. We had an email sent to us from Doug talking about the TCG competition that is quote unquote heating up with the release of Star Wars Unlimited. I think we can both agree that we love Star Wars as a property, and so it's very enticing as a TCG. And his point, and that we kind of echo as well, is that it's hard to invest into two TCGs at once and like devote the time to the brain power to get good at them both. And so you kind of have to choose. You know, I'm obviously a fan of both and have no issue at whichever way someone wants to play. Like these are all supposed to be fun. The only unfortunate side, I think, from our respect is that it seems to be kind of pulling our local community apart into two directions, which was already relatively small to begin with. And so just from a competitive standpoint and a community perspective and the people that we've gotten accustomed to seeing around so much may not be there as much coming forward.
I mean, I would say we've lost two of our best players to this, to Unlimited.
Yeah, this past week was the first time probably the top player that's comes every week wasn't there. So I mean, it's that from that respect it's unfortunate. From everything else, I don't care.
I mean yeah, I mean if you enjoy the game, then go for it. But one thing to think about here is that I've researched Star Wars Unlimited a little bit, is it's made by Fantasy Flight Games, which has made many failed Star Wars TCGs in the past, so hopefully this lasts longer than those, for all the Unlimited fans out there.
The initial reviews are definitely really positive from my
I would say
side.
they are. I would say they are too.
So I agree. I'm a big Star Wars fan, and I would like to see it live on, and them both have legs. The only, again, like selfish downside is that it's kind of splitting up our local community. But yeah, Doug, to answer your question, like obviously it's going to be interesting to see if they develop and both of them have legs to continue for years to come. It's just in this like short end term time where people are kind of having to choose between which one they want, since both of them have launched so closely together that it's a little bit of a sad time to see some of our local community members go to the Star Wars side,
especially when the meta is getting so hot in Lorcana.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and again, the last thing I'll say on it too is really fun to play him every week too, because I learned a lot and I feel like I got better and learned how to make better decisions by playing, one of the top players in the local community. And now that he's gone, it's like I don't have any idea how this is shaping up for the store tournaments and that sort of thing, because I don't know what most of the good players are playing, because some of them don't show up very much.
I mean, what's crazy is kind of poetic-ish. I played him all the time during these 3 chapters of League, and I was never able to beat him. His final time, I was able to beat him.
That's right. I forgot that you beat him last week.
So it feels like, maybe we can continue this on our own.
Oh, so what you're saying is you kicked him out. You beat him and said,
no, not at all. Not at all. I'm just saying it's a little, I'm just saying it's poetic.
No, I know. I'm teasing. But yeah, I kind of, again, Greg, Greg, wow, I'm reading this and I can't read, apparently. Doug, we definitely, have the same sentiment that you do, that we can't invest in both of them. It's, unfortunate to see some of the players go, but obviously we like the property too and would love to see it live on. So,
and maybe converge into Lorcana one day.
Star Wars universe. Maybe there will be Star Wars and Marvel. We've definitely talked about that in the past. Very unlikely, but you never know. It's possible.
You never know.
Okay, so news, league recap, quick updates on whatever else is going on in our world. We came up with a new mini segment within this segment, and it's called Crazy Stuff That Michael Says and Does.
Official title.
Yeah, I probably will forget exactly how I said that, but Crazy Stuff That Michael Says and Does. So Michael's one of the friends that we've made, like genuine friend now, that we've made through playing Lorcana, and he beat me the entirety of set 1, and then I think the entirety of set 2 up until the last, I think maybe 3 weeks, just every time just decimated me, and so I'm saying this to give context that this is a veteran player, he's been around for a long time and he's really good as well. There just happen to be some snafus in the rulings every now and then, we'll say, if that's fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
And this most recent one was so funny that we decided that we have to make this a ongoing thing because it comes up relatively frequently. And this last week's one was his opponent was playing Popsicle, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's two ways that you can use the Popsicle. 99% of the time, it is used as a draw engine for Hiram or for Judy Hopps or for someone else that's on the board to banish the item and to draw off of said item. Unbeknownst to most people, you can actually use the item and the ability given on the card, which is banish this item to remove 2 damage. And he told his opponent, no, you can't do that. You can only banish it by having another character banish it for you.
Luckily, his opponent was someone we all know, so it wasn't a big deal. But he said that you had to have like a Judy Hopps or something to banish the item.
Yes.
For that ability to activate.
So the funniest part is that it kind of just like went by when he was playing that opponent, and then your brother played Michael's opponent the next game, and your brother was like, "What are you talking about?
You can use it whenever you want.
Yeah, you don't have to do it like that." And so we're like, "Hold on, where did this come from?" And then his opponent threw him under the bus and said, "Well, Michael told me I had to use it like this." And so then the entire group of us at that point, which I think there were 8 of us, were just like, hold on, hold the phone. And we all just kind of took a step back just to kind of throw Michael under the bus and shame him for that hilarious take that he had on Popsicle.
We formed like a group that night, which was fantastic.
Yeah, we did. So anyways, that's the fun story. We usually have, boring updates or, we're ready for set 4 or whatever, but we just thought this was a fun like anecdote. For 2 reasons. One, it's like we're building a community with the league, and like we genuinely mean that, how fun this can be and the new friendships and everything that come from it. But 2, the story was just too funny. Like my stomach was aching from laughing so hard. Like it was just a great time.
Michael and my dad had an hour-long game.
They held everybody else up. We were waiting to like shift into round 3, and they took forever.
Michael, if you're listening to this, sorry, bud. But
no, we're throwing you under the bus, and we said we were going to. So yeah, that's our story. I mean, this is story time, or
it's
crazy stuff that Michael says and does.
Yeah, there you go.
So yes, that's the new small segment within the news that might come up from time to time, depending on what Michael says and does in the previous week.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for news and the preamble of the episode. So with that said, time to get into the tier list.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so quick table setting here. These aren't the best cards, or these aren't like all like the cream of the crop. Like not everything's an S tier, obviously, but all of these cards are playable. And so even if it's like a C or D tier card within the list, that doesn't mean it's a bad card and shouldn't be played. That means that it's a good card, but either situational or has some drawbacks to it that doesn't make it like super, justified in like every situation.
That applies to all cards except a few Sapphire cards.
Yeah, we did. To be fair, we did kind of have to like stretch to find some Sapphire cards to throw in there because Sapphire isn't super strong this set. I mean, I think that we are starting to see some strong Sapphire pairings, but the Sapphire cards in general were way stronger in Chapter 2. So, but anyways, let's go ahead and jump into it. So we are starting with the Amber and going through the lists of inks as you normally would in a set. And so with Amber starting up, you can only really start in one way, and that is Dalmatian Puppy.
Yeah, we thought we'd start it off with an S here.
Yeah, I mean,
just kick it off from the get-go here.
Most unique card in the game, like bar none. It is the most unique card in the game.
You can create a deck with just this one card.
That is facts. If you really wanted to do that, you absolutely could. No, Dalmatian Puppy is an S tier, not because of its necessarily strength, but more because anytime I pull a Dalmatian Puppy from a pack, I am super excited about it, and it never gets old, even though it's a common card, and so it's just super fun and brings new life into like the Amber openings when you open cards.
I feel like we needed a Puppy Enchanted, honestly.
That I would have been like, I would have gone crazy for a Puppy Enchanted. That would have been so fun.
I think we needed it, and Enchanted of probably this next card as well.
I could very much say that too. So yeah, so getting into the real first card of the set, we are starting with Bare Necessities, the Amber Song 2-cost inkable that lets you discard any non-character from your opponent's hand. So not only do you get to see your opponent's hand, but you get to choose what card to discard. So any important songs, locations, actions, you name it, you can pull that out of your opponent's hand and make them discard it. So it's really strong. This is one of the true, I think, S tier cards of the set.
Absolutely.
It's incredibly important for those aggro decks to slow your opponents down.
One of the best songs in the game, period.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
In all 3 chapters. So
we should do a songs tier list at some point.
We will, 100%.
That's a good. We need to throw that down and do like all of them together. But yes,
100%.
So Bare Necessities S tier. It's really really good. It's hard to recover from when your opponent plays it correctly. Mm-hmm. So okay, moving on. We got a lot of puppies coming up. So yes, speaking of puppies, that's another reason we threw it in. But starting with Perdita here. Perdita is the 6-cost uninkable, quests for 2, but her ability lets you pull a 2-cost character or less from your discard pile and play them for free. So it's a little different than like Mufasa, because it comes from your discard and there's a little bit of shenanigans that you have to do to get it in there. But in the same respect, it's much better than Hades, that has been played a lot because of the recursion that can come from the discard, because you can play it for free. Hades, it just goes back in your hand. While there's no restrictions from Hades, playing it for free is I think a little bit better of a proposition depending on your deck you're playing.
100%. I mean, it doesn't apply to all cards. It's 2 costs or less.
Right.
But still, I think a great value.
And with 6 strength, and every time she quests, you get to do that as well. If you don't take her off the board, and she just keeps questing and putting other stuff back on the board.
Which isn't, fair to say, I don't think it's often that she stays on the board.
I've had a couple games. If your opponent knows what they're doing, they'll do what they can to take her out. But if you have a bodyguard in play, which we'll get to in a second on bodyguards, it can be a little more tricky than you think.
Okay.
So
that's fair.
So with that said, like B tier probably.
I think B tier is absolutely fair because she's basically created her own deck list.
Yeah, I mean there's a new Perdita, like it's called the Perdita deck, and it's not the most meta thing or strongest, most consistent deck ever, but I've played that a couple times and it's been really fun.
I mean, it's a super fun deck and one of the funnest new ones to come out of Chapter 3.
For sure.
So it deserves a spot, I think, up in this list.
Okay, moving on to more puppies. We have Pluto, the 1-cost uninkable that has the ability exert to remove or to make your next character cost 1 ink less. So he's in that same realm as like Lantern to help you ramp into bigger characters quicker. But he has 0 strength, and so he can be challenged unencumbered, and so he definitely has to be protected when he is on the board and doing that. So it's a little tough. I think he's really strong. Again, if he's not put in check fast, like if you're playing a more late game deck and you don't get out on the board quick, then he can have a couple turns of impact, and it'd be really, really annoying.
I mean, this card has almost single-handedly changed how Amber is played. Honestly,
depending on, I think, Steel Song, I don't think it runs it, but every other like aggro Amber deck, I think is running it these days. So I agree. So where are we thinking for Pluto?
I think you can put it next to Perdita.
That was my thought as well. I think we throw him a B. I think he's really strong and can add a lot of value, but he's not the most impactful character because he can be taken off for free, and you have to kind of keep him safe in that respect.
Yep.
So with that said, we move on to Pluto's Shift, the big Pluto, Floodborn. I think this is the first time we've done both of those in the same ink color, but they're both impactful in their very own ways. And correct me if I'm wrong or if you disagree, but Pluto is probably the best bodyguard in the game.
I think it is still debatable with Kita and Simba. I think.
I mean, they're very strong, but I think like their impact, I think, is just as good because they can be played so early.
I'm saying it's debatable. I don't think it's hands down. It's debatable.
I think we're saying two different things. I think you're saying like the impact that they can have is just as high. I'm saying just from like a raw card bodyguard perspective.
Oh, 100%.
Pluto's is the best 100%. Bodyguard. Yeah. So he has 3 strength, 8 willpower, quests for 2, and his ability is at the start of your turn, remove up to 3 damage from this character. So it'll take 4 or 5 turns to just chip away at him with small characters because he would just keep removing all that damage. So you either have to have a big hammer come in and try to take him out in one go, or have to have direct removal because otherwise he's really, really, really hard to take off the board.
And that's his one weakness, is that he has 3 strength. So he's within Medusa range.
That's a good point, yeah, with today's meta.
which that's really his only main weakness.
Yeah, I agree. And that's probably a good point too. And so otherwise it might be S tier, honestly, but I'm kind of thinking A. Are you in a good A realm here?
You're thinking A?
I'm thinking
I was
A.
thinking AB, so that's fair.
Okay, we'll go low A then when we get to it. So yeah, incredible bodyguard. The shifting makes it really strong as well because you can get him out on turn 5, maybe even turn floor if you have the other Pluto or a lantern on board. So that's really really strong there. So moving on to the last Amber card, we have Kita, the Floodborn Kita. Um, 5 cost inkable, 3 strength, 5 willpower, quests for 2, and her ability is that all characters on the board when play lose 3 strength until the start of the next turn. And so she's maybe the most impactful card in the game when you're ahead, because if you're ahead and your opponent has to start removing characters, but they don't have any strength, then there's no way for them to do that. And if you have more lore on the board and are racing to the end, she's gonna get you there. She's gonna buy you a turn for sure.
I mean, she makes that lead similar to another card in Ruby, Ruby Legendary card that we'll talk about later. If you have that lead and play her down, it is an it's almost like game set match.
Yeah, I think again, Amber doesn't have like the most strong deck of all time right now, and I think is very aggro focused, and so a little bit one dimensional. And aggro, is starting to like waver in the meta, but 100% an aggro staple, and so I'm thinking probably A again.
Okay,
Kita,
yeah,
if that works. So we have a very top heavy Amber. Unfortunately, if they don't get that, the consistency of those aggro decks is not quite there with the rest of the tools around them. So some of the other, more Ruby Amethyst type decks are still really strong against them. But to recap Amber real quick, we have Dalmatian Puppy in A because of course, or in S, because of course. We have Bare Necessities in S. We have the Pluto Floodborn in S. We have Kita Floodborn in S. Wow, I cannot talk. I'm saying, okay, I'm going to start over real quick because I just botched that so bad. In S tier, we have Dalmatian Puppy and Bare Necessities. In A tier, we have Pluto Floodborn and Kita Floodborn. And in B tier, we have Pluto and Perdita. So if I mess that up again, you're just going to have to take over from here because I clearly can't talk. But okay, moving on to Amethyst.
Let's go.
Your favorite ink.
My favorite ink.
So nothing near as impactful as the bounce package, but still some fun characters.
Really nice pieces, I think. Nothing. I mean, we'll get into it then because like Jafar is our next card here, and he's probably the most out of this Amethyst group here. Probably the most found it creates a new deck basically.
Yeah, just like we kind of said with Perdita, like he's made a new meta potential with his ability, which is when this character is exerted, every time you draw a card, gain 1 lore. So Jafar plus a whole new world is by far and away, in my opinion, the most scary combo there is.
100% it is, because more than likely you might get that draw for the second one, and it's
if you a whole new world into another whole new world with another character on board that can sing it, then at 6 lore you're in lethal range. So at any point you have a Jafar on the board that can be shifted onto, like that's a big threat.
100%.
So it really changes again the dynamic. So with all that said, I think probably like A tier. I think there are a couple caveats, and like the combo that you have to do to like make it work keeps it from being S. But the fact that you can get into that, high lore range in one turn really makes it impactful.
No, I think it's tough to put this card any lower because of what its potential is.
Yeah, agree. And there are enough tools. Again, the combo also, like the necessity of the combo kicks it from S, but I think it also, like having those tools there, pushes it up into A too. If a whole new world wasn't a thing, this would probably be a B or C card.
I mean, yeah, it's a big up for it too. Is it's in Amethyst, which is probably the best card draw in the game.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's not only whole new world. You've got other stuff in there that help it out. But I mean, overall,
insane card.
Insane card.
Yeah, and a really good one too. I like the art. Anyways, yeah, it's a great card for sure. Okay, the new Amethyst Rafiki card.
Okay, this is probably like one of my low-key favorite cards of the set. So this is Rafiki Mystical Fighter. He's a 1-cost inkable, 0 strength, 2 willpower, quest for 1. But he has a Challenger 3.
Yeah, so when challenging, he's basically a Captain Hook with 3 strength, 2 willpower. The difference being that he doesn't have any strength when being challenged.
But he does have a bonus. It's a super helpful ability. So when he challenges, when he challenges a hyena?
When he challenges a hyena character,
he takes no damage.
Yeah, which in today's meta is extremely important. If you can't catch the sarcasm, I'm sorry, but so yeah, I think he's really, really strong. I think the one downside is the 2 willpower. We talked about this ad nauseum in chapter 2, where the 1/3s, 1 strength, 3 willpower are really important because of like teeth and ambitions, and the snake package and all of the 3 damage that you were getting from everybody else. So being above that 2 threshold is really important. It keeps you from getting grab your sorted, and things like that. So I think it's strong. I think it's a really good early game like deterrent for questing, but it's not the most powerful thing of all time.
I think if we could have took the ability away, maybe add a willpower point,
then it's nuts.
Then it's nuts.
Okay, so what are we thinking here?
I still think it deserves a spot in B.
Yeah, I'm good with B as well. I think it's really strong, but I think again there's some caveats that kind of like push it down to B. So let's even go like high B.
Adding a 3 strength, 1 cost to Amethyst is huge. I really do think
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so moving on from Rafiki there, we're going into the Queen's Castle, which I think, spoiler alert, might be the most impactful location. We've got 3 on this list, but as far as like abilities go, this is bar none the best ability that you can get from a location.
For sure.
So it costs 4, but it has 1 move cost, which I think is incredible, 7 willpower, which is pretty strong. And its ability says that at the start of your turn, for every character you have at this location, draw a card. So again, you're drawing cards.
It's also inkable and gains 2 lore.
And I forgot the 2 lore. So yes, it's a massive passive lore generator. From all of the stats of it, it's incredibly, incredibly strong. The one downside I have is that it is only 7 willpower with Fox plus Snake, Fox plus Crab, or Fox plus Maui's Fishhook. You can kind of just take it out. And again, as I mentioned on the Fishhook on the card of the week, like most people that are trying to deal with locations, like they're really ready to deal with them now. And that 7 willpower is a little on the light side. But it just has to be played strategically. If it had 8 or 9 willpower, then it would 100% be S tier.
At best, it's a chunky distraction, which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, so I'm thinking A again for this. I'm
thinking A as well.
Probably even higher than Jafar, just because again I think you at worst it's still a really good distraction. At best, you could draw 4 or 5 cards from it potentially.
I think, but think of the scariness of Jafar though. The scariness of that combo.
Yeah, but we also talked about the scariness of Queen's Castle, or a location and passive lore generator being ahead, and like you having to deal with that. I could go. We'll go below Jafar.
I think Jafar's evasive puts him over the edge.
That's fair. Okay, so Queen's Castle, insane location, definitely one of the top 3, probably even considerably top 1, depending on who you are and who you ask. But moving on to the last Amethyst card of the list, we have Trinabog's Followers. So Trinabog's Followers is a 1-cost inkable, 2 strength, 1 willpower, quests for 1, and his ability says every time he quests, you may banish this card to draw a card off of. So he's in that same realm as like your Cusco's that replace themselves when lost. If you need more cards, then you can grab that from him.
Which I think, especially in Amethyst, which is Ruby Amethyst basically, and Ruby plays a lot of uninkables. So to be able to play an inkable card that replaces itself is really nice.
Any card in general that replaces itself, whether that's like Popsicle where you draw a card when you play it, or if you have the potential to quest and banish itself, like whatever that interaction is for you to get a card off of it, like it's gonna have the potential there.
Absolutely. I mean, and what's really fun is it plays into Chernobog as well, so you're banishing itself and filling up the...
Yeah, that's a good point too.
But overall, just a really fun card. I like it's a really unique kit and mechanic to the game.
Because you don't have to banish it, so
You don't have to
it can
banish it,
stay
yeah.
on there for a turn or two if you don't need a card yet. So
And then
that's
if it's
important
like,
too.
okay, my opponent is going to kill this that turn, might as well draw a card off
Yeah.
of it.
So with all that said, like C tier probably is it?
It doesn't. I don't think it deserves. I think it just off it replacing itself. It doesn't deserve a D.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's strong. I think it's very helpful, but I also think it's limited because later game, the 1 willpower, you think about all of the steel that's running rampant in the meta right now. Tink comes down, kills it right away. Grab your swords, kills it right away. So all those things make it very needy to be played early game for it to have the most impact.
It's a perfect card early game.
Yeah. Okay, so quick Amethyst recap here. We have Jafar at A tier and Queen's Castle at A tier. We have Rafiki at B tier, and we have Chernobog's Followers at C tier. So with that said, we can move on to Emerald, which got some fancy tools this go around.
And I mean, oh man, it's so good. I mean, you're an Emerald fan. You're an Emerald fanboy.
I still really, really, really want to be like an Emerald player. Like at heart, that's like my biggest like love, I guess, of the inks. It has a very much stronger identity now with all these new cards, but I think it's still. I mean, it just doesn't fit my playstyle, I guess. You know, from that respect. But anyways, the tools themselves these times are incredible. And so yeah, let's jump into Emerald because I'm super excited about this one because there's some really fun cards. Yeah, so let's start off with on this list with Kit Cloudkicker. The 3-cost inkable, 2 strength, 3 willpower, quests for 1, but his ability is one of the bigger tempo gainers of the set, which is return a character with 2 strength or less to your opponent's hand.
To me, this is an easy A tier, I think.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I don't have any issues there. I think that he again the momentum and the tempo that he can gain you early in a game, if you're playing on the aggro side, is very, very high.
I mean, it's such a unique piece to Emerald. Emerald has nothing like this, really.
Not from a character perspective.
Not from a character's
perspective. Which as we've seen with like your Lady Tremaines, and other on-play character abilities that have the same type of ability from an action is much more impactful.
And it's inkable, unlike Tremaine and Medusa.
And it's inkable, which is hard to come by in Emerald. So,
absolutely.
So yeah, I have no problems with A tier either. Yeah, so with that said, let's move on. Which the next one we have on our list here is Ursula Deceiver, which if you don't know Ursula Deceiver, then you're definitely not an Emerald player because Ursula Deceiver is the 2-cost inkable card that says your opponent has to show you their hand and you can remove a song from their hand. So this allows you to rip out, grab your swords, be prepared, a whole new world, all of those really, really, really critical songs that can completely disrupt the way your opponent wants to play.
And just like Kit Cloudkicker being an easy A, this is an easy S.
Yeah, this definitely changes the way that you have to like go into starting a game. If you know you're playing an Emerald player, you more or less have to like mulligan your songs away. Because especially like your late game songs, like if you have a Be Prepared in your hand, you can't leave that in your hand anymore. You just can't.
And I've seen some discourse on this card. It's like, oh, it wasn't super impactful in my games. The thing is, with the impact of this card, you don't really see because you're getting rid of something that your opponent is going to do. So you don't necessarily see that impact. You have to kind of think about like, oh, they would have played it here, and that would have changed the entire game.
Yeah, that's good. That's a really good way to think about it. I also. Just the crazy disruption and just again the way that you have to like change the way that you think about going into that interaction is the impact that's the impact that just can't be seen as well. So I think Ursula is just an easy slot in at S tier as well. Which getting into the next one, which is Ursula Deceiver of All, the legendary 3-cost inkable, 2 strength, 3 willpower, quests for 1, but has the ability that you can double sing songs. So you can sing the song once and then you have the option to sing it again for free and keep it out of your discard and put it back in your deck. So, you have the option for it potentially coming back up in longer games and having the impact again. You get to sing songs twice, which can create all the change in the world, whether it be Strength of a Raging Fire or Let the Storm Rage On or Mother Knows Best or Bare Necessities, like if you really needed to, if you're pairing it with Amber or I mean the list goes on and on.
Teeth and Ambitions.
Yes, I mean it has so many great combos that you can do. And again, if it's left unchecked, then the amount of like tempo disruption that it can have is just about as high as you can get in the game. So solid, like no questions asked S tier, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's insane. So with that said, we've got 2 more left in Emerald, which next up leaves Morph. The 2 cost inkable, 2 strength, 1 willpower, quests for 2, but has the ability that anybody can shift onto him, which can create
any Floodborn character.
Yeah, well, any Floodborn character, yes. Anybody that has the shift ability can be shifted onto him. So it just leaves a lot of like smoke and mirrors where, before if you were throwing down like Aladdin Street Rat, it's like, well, Aladdin Heroic Outlaw is probably coming at some point. But now, it's paired with Steel usually, given all of the, again, Ursula songs that you want to be singing from Steel. You can shift on like Beast Tragic Hero on turn 3, which you didn't have a shift target before. You can shift on Robin Hood, the new legendary that didn't really have a shift target before. You can shift on Tinkerbell. Like all the list goes on and on. And so the amount of like questions that you have to ask yourself at like what's coming next when he's played can lead to a lot of issues if you're not careful, because they can go like wipe your board with a Tink Swords or something crazy.
He also makes Tragic Hero's shift make sense, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's little interactions like that you don't necessarily think of right off the bat. But honestly, one of the more unique cards we've seen introduced to the game yet. And yeah, Morph is an awesome card.
Yeah, so a solid A tier, like above Queen's Castle, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go with that. Okay, last one in Emerald, Cursed Merfolk. This one is crazy strong as well. There's only 1 card in the whole set, Fire the Cannons, that can check it without it having the opportunity to do anything. It's the 1 cost uninkable, 0 strength, 1 willpower, quests for 2, which is crazy from a 1 cost card to begin with. But on top of that, it has the ability that says whenever this character is challenged, your opponent must discard a card. So again, like getting into that whole disruption with Emerald. Again, if you don't have Fire the Cannons, the only way to do this early before turn 3, if you're playing Steel, and before turn like 6, if you're playing any other color, is to challenge it, and so you're going to have to discard a card. And so from that respect, I think it's really strong. I think the 0 strength, 1 willpower is obviously very necessary for a 1 cost card, but I don't know. I'm between A and B. I could go either route.
I'm gonna go A. I think it's so important.
That's kind of where I was sitting too, but A is just getting so clogged.
The last time we recorded this, it was also,
and that's kind of what I thought too. But anyways, yeah. So that wraps up our Emerald, which again, the Emerald tools this time are insane. I think Emerald went from very low tier ink to you have to like really like Emerald or play Bucky John discard to play it, to a very viable combo now with all of the tools that it has. So
Absolutely.
Quick recap: at S tier we have both Ursulas, Deceiver and Deceiver of All. At A tier, the other 3 rounded out: the Morph, Cursed Merfolk, and Kick Cloud Kicker. So all really strong cards, insane ink combos and potential this go around. So yeah, with that said, we're halfway through. Let's get into the Ruby cards, and we start with the banger of the set, Jim Hawkins, the 5 cost inkable, 4 strength, 4 willpower, quests for 2, who has the ability to play a location for free whenever he is played, and then to move to a location for free anytime a location is played. So he can play and move a location for free on the turn he's played, which could give you anywhere from like at a free 4 to 6 ink because of those abilities. And so that alone just creates you a lot of tempo when played at the right time, and giving you a lot of additional passive lore on the board of potential.
This card alone has made it feel weird for me personally to play locations any other way without him.
Yeah, I agree.
So this card, I don't think it's an S tier. I think it's a solid A tier in my book.
Yeah, I would hedge to S tier. I think that the meta's just like really taken a turn to deal with locations so well that it's not necessarily a nick against him. It's more just the rest of the tools that are in the set are so good at dealing with him that I would say like top A tier.
Yeah, 100%.
Because you can still get that advantage, and then they still have to deal with the location, and so it still creates those interactions, but it's just not as impactful as you're going to see with those Ursulas or Bare Necessities potentially.
Yep.
Okay, Madame Medusa, we've already mentioned her a few times, I think.
My favorite card of the set.
So Madame Medusa is the new Ruby removal card, kind of in light of Lady Tremaine. 6 cost, uninkable, quests for 1, 4 strength, 4 willpower, and her kind of like caveat to the removal is that the character must have 3 strength or less. So, Lady Tremaine is your opponent gets to choose what's removed, and so if there's multiple cards on the board, it's going to be the least valuable. With her, you get to choose, but you can only choose cards that are 3 strength or less. That being said, Beast Tragic Hero, Robin Hood Champion of Sherwood,
Ursula.
both Ursulas, the Pluto as mentioned earlier, Kita as mentioned earlier. Mainly all the impactful cards of the entire like playset of chapters, aside from like Giant Tinkerbell, Jim Hawkins and Jafar, which are both on the list, but they're not like super widely played. I'm trying to think of like anything else that might come up, like Tamatoa, which isn't like super usual. And if you're like that late in the game, then you're probably needing to be prepared or something anyways. So the point I'm trying to make is she basically can take out 90% of the impactful cards that would be on a board. And so it's really, really strong from that regard.
All right, I'm gonna fight you here. I think she deserves a spot in S.
No shot. No shot. You're telling me she has as much impact as Ursula in Bare Necessities?
I think so.
If you could just if it was a Dragon Fire or a Maleficent Monstrous Dragon that was uninkable and a little cheaper, sure. But the caveat that you have to like have 3 strength or less, like what if the only card on the board is a Tamatoa? And then its ability is null and it doesn't matter. You can just play it and nothing happens.
Then there's other stuff from Ruby to help it out. But like I think Tremaine is just as impactful as those other cards in S. I honestly do.
I couldn't disagree more.
High A.
Yeah, I'm fine with high A again. I mean, we'll just make A tier like I'll even put her above Jafar because I think she probably is better than Jafar. You know what? I'll even go higher than Jim. I think she probably is better than Jim too, to be fair.
So she's S, essentially.
All right, she's really close. I'm not saying she's not good. I think she is really good. I think there are the caveats in play though. Like again, like if you are in need of board removal, like your opponent's at 19 lore, and every single time that they play something, you have to remove it. If they play something with 4 strength and she's your only option to remove, you're not saved. I think that most situations she's really good. The difference is in that every situation those S tier cards are good. Every situation.
So if you play Ursula Deceiver and your opponent has all character cards, it's good?
Yes, because you can see their hand. If still played at the right time, you can either disrupt them or understand what's coming next. Because if you're going into and you have like, let's say you do play a late game at like turn 8, where they might be able to be prepared again, and you play that for 2 costs, meaning you still have 6 ink left, and you see they don't have a be prepared, you can go all in because they have to then top deck be prepared to win the game. So I think that you don't get the like massive value, but it still has a decent chunk of value, whereas Madame Medusa doesn't have any value if there's no character on the board with 3 strength or less.
That's fine.
Okay.
Well,
that's a good banter right there. Good back and forth. So Madame Medusa A tier. With that said, moving on to the other new Ruby removal, which is Prince Eric. 2 strength, 2 willpower, 4 cost uninkable, quests for 2, and his ability is anytime he's banished, you get to choose a different character to banish. So if he attacks into somebody, banishes them, and is banished, then you get to basically 2 for 1.
This is my ride or die this set. I love this card so much. I know it's not the most meta play, but it's probably, this and Tremaine are tied for my favorite cards.
If he didn't quest for 2, I would honestly say it's C or D tier, just because he's not a threat. With the two lore, then he becomes a threat where you can't just let him sit there unchecked. So I really, really like him too. I think the combo potential of like your Teeth and Ambitions as well gives some new life into it. but again, he has the potential to be played for a couple turns, nothing happens, and then you be prepared, and he doesn't have any value from that removal. And so I'm thinking B tier.
B tier's fine. That's fine.
So let's go. I'll even go highest B tier because I think he probably has a little bit more impact than Rafiki. Okay, getting into the RLS Legacy. I think, again, one of the top 3 locations. The RLS Legacy goes perfect with Gem, obviously. It's the 4-cost uninkable that gives characters their evasive. 8 willpower, 3 move cost, unless there's a character there, and then it's a 1 move cost, which again goes perfect with Gem since he moves there for free. However, again, as we've talked about a couple times now, there's a ton of uninkables in Ruby, as you've said, so that adds to it. And with the good tools to remove locations that everybody's already figured out, it might just get removed right away, but it's still really, really strong. So I'm thinking high B, low A, keeping the top heaviness of the tier list going.
Let's do B.
Okay.
I think as of right now, Queen's Castle deserves that spot in A as the location there. I think RLS Legacy is a fine B location.
Yeah. Okay, last Ruby card here, Maui's Fishhook. Again, we already talked about this in the card of the week, so I don't have to dive super deep into it. But I think it's an incredibly important tool for locations. Like if you don't have a Fishhook and you're not playing Steel, then it's really, really hard to deal with locations. We'll put it that way. So you either got to be really aggro or and be ahead to where you don't necessarily have to deal with the locations and just you outlore them, or you have to crash 3 or 4 bodies into stuff, which isn't really fun either. So I'm torn on this one. I'm in between A or B again.
I think A. You got to put an A.
Okay, we'll like really ramp up the A here. We'll go like above Queen's Castle since Fishhook will take out Queen's Castle.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so that finishes up Ruby, which again, we're really top heavy. And I think there are a bunch of good cards this set, which this is proving. I think the difference is that some of these, aren't like the meta's so diverse now. That is what I guess what I'm getting at. So quick recap on Ruby. We have Madame Medusa in A tier, Jim Hawkins A tier, Maui's Fishhook A tier, and then B tier, we've got RLS Legacy and Prince Eric. So again, still pretty solid, cards. I think they can all fit in to the potential decks that you're playing. But yeah, it's really good all the way around. So with that said, though, we're moving on to Sapphire.
Let's fill out that lower end, huh?
Yeah, so Grammatala, we threw on here because she's a legendary, and we thought there would be a lot of potential at first. I'm just going to throw Tala on D. Unfortunately, I think she's just too slow. If you're trying to grind to that 7 cost that she is, I think there are much more impactful plays that you can have at that 7 location or that 7 cost than playing her. So unfortunately, I think she can be played. I have been played against her, and if you have a couple tools like a couple Fishbones in play or something else, and you have some decent cards in your hand, you can get 5 or 6 lore pretty easily. But again, I think there's a lot of caveats to make that happen. Okay, Heart of Tefiti, the new ramp item from Sapphire, which is 3 cost inkable and says exert for 2 ink and then put the top card of your deck into your inkwell face down and exerted. So it's like the Fishbone, except it comes from your deck instead of your hand. And since it comes from your deck instead of your hand, it has that cost associated with it.
I think this also belongs in D.
I think it's C. You haven't played any Sapphire this set.
I've played against it.
Who had it that was playing it?
I think. I mean, I don't want to say their name, but
at League you played?
One of our better players.
Okay. So there's a better player and he had it in his deck, so it's got to be C tier.
I kind of dealt with it pretty easily.
So here's the reason. Hear me out again. We'll try to make this quick. Heart of Tefiti, if you don't have cards, like if you don't get your Hiram engine online, but you're still trying to ramp, this allows you to do that. If you only have Fishbone and you have 1 or 2 cards in your hand, you can't ramp. And so you have to make the quick distinction. Is Fishbone much better? Of course. Is Heart of Tefiti good in its situations? Yes.
But is ramp even that good right now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Fine. Fine. I'll give you your C.
I feel like I'm now 2-0 on the convincing you with the Madame Medusa and the Heart of Tefiti. But okay, I'll let you say where do we put. We'll skip the Montanui here. Where are we putting Montanui?
D.
Okay, I'm going D as well. I think we had it higher than last time when we filmed or recorded, but I've kind of changed my tune on this one. Montanui is the location that anytime a character at that location is banished, you get to put them in your inkwell instead of your discard pile. So it has that intrinsic value. The downside here is that it has 5 willpower, and so it just gets removed real fast. Unless it's played really early game, it's just going to get removed, and then you're not going to get the benefits of it. And so I think it's okay. Again, if you want to play it and you want to try to build around it, like this is on the better top of Sapphire. Like it's still playable. It's just there are much better options out there.
Now, if the location itself, when it was banished, went to your inkwell,
that'd be crazy. Nice. That'd be crazy too, honestly, because it does have the passive lore, and so you got to take it out eventually. But with that said, we get into the more impactful location in Sapphire, which is McDuck Manor. McMansion, as it's been dubbed online, because it has 9 willpower, which is incredible. And so if you ramp with Sapphire and then somehow end up with 2 or 3 of these bad boys and play them all at the same time, your opponent's gonna have a bad time.
I think it is a solid A. I don't think it's an...
Okay, I was in the same boat, so I'll put it like lower-ish A. Like I'm gonna put it just below Queen's Castle. I think Queen's Castle is probably a little bit more impactful. But McDuck Manor, too, when played at the right time, can be really, really, really annoying.
It can win you the game single-handedly.
Yeah, very well could. Okay, so last one, a late addition to the Sapphire list is Lucky Dime, the 7-cost uninkable item that says exert for 2 ink, gain lore equal to one of your characters in play. So again, like if you play a Belle or you play a Gaston intellectual powerhouse, or you play a Tamatoa, that turn, if you still have ink left over, you can get the lore from them from the Lucky Dime before they're able to quest. And so, you know, they might get removed right away, but you still got some lore from them. And then if they don't get removed, your next turn, you're going to get 6 to 10 lore. And so your opponent has like a 2-turn window to like get rid of your stuff on your board. So it's really, really strong. I've started to play with it a little bit. It's not the most impactful card in the game because it is really high in cost and non-inkable. I'm thinking solid B tier.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm even going to put it above the Legacy.
That's fine.
Okay.
You do whatever you want at this point.
I'm sorry. I know. I'm very hard-headed. Okay, quick Sapphire recap here. We've got McDuck Manor at A tier. We've got Lucky Dime at B tier. We've got Heart of Tafiti at C tier and Grammatala at D tier. So again, not the most impactful characters. I think the most impact that Sapphire's seen was from set 2 and the whole Hiram Popsicle engine.
Flavisham. We call him Flavisham by his last name.
Flavisham.
That's what he's called in the movie. But go ahead.
Okay, well, you're roasting me now, so now we're even.
Let's go.
Okay.
Let's keep it going.
Moving on to Steel and the last ink of the set, obviously. One of the most important inks in the game currently. A few tools that have definitely helped out, and a few fun cards as well. So, starting off with John Silver, the new 3-cost card that for every location in play, he gets 1 additional lore and resist +1. There was the pirate deck that had a very quick rise and fall at the beginning of the set that I think is really, really impactful. I mean, he alone could quest for 4 or 5 and be impossible to take out because you'd have 4 or 5 resist as well, so you'd have to direct remove him almost. But again, aggro is in a weird place right now, I think. And again, with all the location removal, then he kind of just gets removed too because everybody's so good at dealing with locations. So from that regard, I think probably C tier.
I was going to say D.
I think he's still really strong. We'll go D. I'm fine with D. I'll let you win this one. That's not one that that I find is worth dying on the hill for. So yeah, I'll definitely go D on John Silver there.
I will say, John Silver being one of my favorite Disney characters. It's hard to say that.
It's a really good card. If you're building a pirate deck, it's the most important card of your pirate deck. So it's, again, not that it's a D tier card. It's very good. It's just in the current meta, it's not as strong as it necessarily looked initially. Captain Smee, on the other hand, the 2-cost inkable, 3 strength, 3 willpower quests for 2 stat line on a 2-cost card is insane. His downside is that if you don't have a captain in play and at the end of your turn is exerted, then he loses 1 willpower or like has 1 damage done to him. Mm-hmm. So he needs, even if there isn't a captain in play and he goes unchecked, that's still 6 lore. Like, that's insane for an early game card. But with a Captain Hook on board, like, I mean, that gets you your 6 lore, or he has to get removed and can take out a snake, can take out a fox, can take out a goat, you name it, all those other important three willpower cards like we talked about in Chapter 2 so much. So I think he's strong. I don't think he's like the strongest card of all time. I have an idea, but I want to hear your opinion. What do you think?
I think he can sneak up on you fast.
He can.
So I for that reason, I'm gonna put him in B.
Okay, I was in the same boat. That's right where I was. I was even go pretty high B too. We'll go we'll go right there, like mid B before Eric there. Okay, so getting into Robin Hood, however, the champion of Sherwood, I think we had him in S tier last time too, and I'm still on that boat.
I'm 100%.
I think he has 2 abilities. He shifts for 3, which again, a 3/6 body. He has 3 strength, 6 willpower, where he has the potential to be on the board at turn 3. Like, that is nuts. And then on top of that, his 2 abilities are whenever he challenges and banishes a character, you gain 2 lore. So he gets lore from challenging, which you want to do. So that's insane. Clears board and gets lore. And then if he's ever banished, which is really hard with 6 willpower, then he gets you a card as well, which I think we said this time, or we said before we started the podcast, that anytime a card we were talking about Chernobog. Anytime a card replaces himself, it's really good. Yeah. So it's just, he's going to have impact. Even if he's removed right away, he's such a threat that he takes away a lot of the, stress from other cards. And so I think that he's always going to get you impact and can have insane value when he's shifted on turn 3.
He's probably and the best card right now. Like, when he's played, you're like an oh boy moment. Like,
it really is. It truly is, because it's like, crap, I can't quest because he'll take him out and get the lore. I can't sing because he'll take him out and get the lore. I can't take him out in one go because he has 6 willpower. Yeah. Unless you have a Maui. So it's just, he stays on the board.
Or Madame Medusa, who deserves an S.
Yeah, Madame Medusa and Maui are really the 2 best ways to take him out for sure. So I think he's fantastic. Even if he does get removed right away, I think the target that he puts on himself alleviates the targets from everybody else. And if you're playing Steel Emerald with like your Ursula's on board or something else, then that's really, really 100%. Hard decision that you have to make on what to remove. Okay, so getting into the final 2 here, the final stretch, we've got Rise of the Titans. I was a little light on this one at first, but I think with the rise of Queen's Castle and McDuck Manor specifically, it becomes incredibly important. And even more so the last couple weeks, I think even more so between when we filmed this last time and now, the amount of items that I've seen coming back. Again, I've talked ad nauseum this episode about how good people are getting at removing locations. We're seeing a spellbook resurgence.
I know, man. It's so fun. And just to clear things up here, Rise of Titans banishes a location or item.
Location or item, yes, thank you. I probably should have said that to start with. And so the fact that it can banish an item or location, and you have that versatility to then banish a spellbook or a McDuck Manor or a Queen's Castle and all those really important passive lore generating options, it lends a lot of flexibility. So I think at first with just the locations, I was a little like light on it because, again, everybody's good at removing locations these days. But that really takes away the focus from the items. And so like I said, spellbooks and other items have really started to run kind of unencumbered, and that takes care of it.
What you have to look out for is it's going to activate that darn popsicle ability. Once you banish the popsicle, it's going to activate that ability. Darn it.
Shout out Michael again. Okay, so where are you thinking on this one?
B.
I was thinking A-B, but A is so chalked already that I was thinking B as well. So, you know what? Let's throw it by Lucky Dime. Why not? We got the items up there together. Or the item/location up there together. Okay, last card of the set. Along Came Zeus. 4-cost, uninkable action /song that can deal 5 damage to any character or location.
I mean, it's a really solid card. Like, for Steel, it makes perfect sense to have this.
I think the biggest thing that is overlooked initially is that Steel doesn't have a lot of, like, big body removal. Yeah. It has Grab Your Swords and
it has AoE damage.
And Smash and Fire the Cannons. And all of those, can do direct damage to one person. But 3 damage to 5 damage from Smash to Along Came Zeus is a big difference. Yeah. When you're talking Beast Tragic Hero, you're talking Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, you're talking Maui, you're talking Maleficent Monstrous Dragon. If you do 3 damage to it, it's just kind of a tickle.
Jafar.
Yeah, Jafar. I mean, it's so important to have that 5 damage. So I think this is going to clog up A tier even more, and we're going to throw this like really high A tier.
Alrighty, man. I think it's really heavy top, but I think that's just that it speaks to this chapter.
I think it does too. I think like looking back on this,
I'd
Pluto,
I'd move
Kida,
Amber down a little bit.
Yeah, Pluto and Kida, like again, like at a high level, like 1,000-foot view, like are they the most impactful cards in the set? No. But if you're an Amber player and you love playing Amber, those cards are going to win you games.
Yeah.
So from like that respect, they're still really strong. They're still incredible cards. And so I think it deserves to be a little more top heavy than normal. I think all these cards are fantastic. I've really started to love this set, love the diversity of the meta, love the diversity of the options. And so
I know you're a big Debbie Downer at first on this set.
Yeah, I was. I will admit, I'm starting to come around. My one, I guess, caveat to that at this point is that I still have no clue what I want to play. I can't.
But that's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's not a negative thing. That's a good thing.
I think yes, having those options is fantastic for sure. I think the downside is that I just don't have anything I'm comfortable on yet. But that's a me problem, not a set problem. The set is fantastic. So, quick recap on Steel before we jump out of here. We've got Along Came Zeus at A tier. On B tier, we have Rise of the Titans and Mr. Smee. On D tier, we have John Silver. And last but not least, I did it on purpose. At S tier, we have Robin Hood, Champion of Sherwood, because he is one of the most impactful cards of the set and potentially of the entire game at this point. So, yeah, this was a good one. I had a lot of fun doing it again, even though we had to do it again. I love the banter that we get to do on arguing about a few of these. But any final thoughts, and I'll shut up.
No, I think we're good to go, man. I just, again, love this set. Really, honestly, this list came out pretty well.
I think so too.
I'm proud of it.
I think so too. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Bye, guys.